Sunset Boulevard. It's take 13. A cam, Mark. B cam.
Madame, the cameras are rolling.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. Director.
Daniel, sorry it took so long to get set up. How you feeling?
Okay, I'm all right.
There's no plan here. I don't have any prepared
understand.
questions. We're just going to sort of yammer on and see where it takes us. So since I don't really know anything about you, I just kind of want to start at the beginning and just, well, first of all, tell me your name and tell me your age.
My name is Daniel Maloney, and I will soon be 77.
Tell me a little bit about where you come from, what's your hometown?
I was raised in a suburb of Philadelphia called Darby. I went to Darby High School. From Darby High School, I went to Ohio State.
Tell me a little bit about what did your folks do, and did you have siblings?
I had one brother, one sister. Parents were together all their lives. Raised in a black community that was well-structured, very low, almost no crime rate. Kids that I knew were college-bound. At the time, it was a great place to grow up.
Is there much religion in your family? Or?
Yes, my grandfather was a minister. My mother was a choir director. So I grew up singing, was in the children's choir at the church. But when I got to be adolescent, that was gone with the wind. I didn't want to do that anymore.
How come?
I was interested in the sports, and there was all sort of political intrigue at the church with my mother, and she didn't want to have the choir anymore, and I wanted to go out for football, so seemed like it was great. The end of that.
And were you popular? I mean, it sounds like if you were in sports and stuff, you probably had a pretty viable kind of social life.
Yes, and by the time I got to 8th grade, I was a very good athlete. I was a good runner, and yeah, I began to be popular because nobody could beat me anything. And that was another thing of masculinity, of having to prove myself, because people were saying not nice things about me, some of them, for no reason, because I didn't do anything. But the kind of place that I grew up, it's very gossipy. If you're odd man out, and it wasn't just me, there were lots of kids who didn't have the correct clothes, or, you go into the gossip mill, and actually the men in the community were the worst ones. They would go around the corner and stand on the corner and talk about everybody. And I knew that they talked about me too, so.
Do you want to say what they were gossiping about?
I guess they were talking that I was a sissy, or at least effeminate. Word got back to me, and that was one of the reasons I decided I better change my image. I better go out for sports, which I did, and became a state champion in track and field. And that's how I got to college.
So the sports thing was sort of dually motivated by your love of sports, but also by a desire
I ran to get the hell out of there, yes.
Yeah. But also to detract from what you were concerned about being gossiped about as being a sissy.
Yes, yes.
Did you have any sense of why they might have called you a sissy?
I don't know. Maybe at one point I can remember walking in front of the mirror, and I said, maybe it's my walk. Certain people in the neighborhood pronounce O. It's a Philadelphia thing. The way that they pronounce O, it's a house, and about. And it can sound feminine, but it's also very South Philly, South Jersey. And I thought, well, maybe that's what they're picking out. So I started to try to change my speech habits and really just sort of become a self-made man, as it were.
Was there like girlfriends in this period?
Yeah, I had girlfriends, yeah. I had, sweet on a couple girls. I went to proms and did all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Did the sissy stuff start to die down when your athletic stuff became more successful?
Yes, definitely. On one level, on a deeper level, I know that they were still talking. If you looked like you were going to get ahead, people talked about you more. You know, those people who were strivers and things like that, you just got talked about.
So tell me a little bit about being a sports guy and at what point there were feelings around being gay as a young kid.
Well, I was a fast runner when I was in the 6th grade, and I could beat everyone running. But when I got to 7th grade, that's when I decided I wanted to go out for sports. It was a way to get some sort of self-esteem and self-worth for myself. So I started with track, and then I did basketball, and I did football.
Do you remember at what point you started having any kind of sense that you might not be heterosexual, or?
Oh, I knew that when I was 6.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I guess there really was never a time that I didn't know, but in like many things in life, you don't focus on it. I always think you make decisions instantaneously in your life, but sometimes it takes you years to reconcile that you have made a decision. So I knew very early that I was attracted to men, and I sort of knew that I shouldn't advertise it, so I didn't. I sort of kept it to myself.
Did you know that there was such a thing as homosexuality?
No, I didn't know there was such a thing. I just know I felt a sense of excitement. I didn't even know it was sexual. I just know I liked the boys in the class. Not all of them, but some of them, if I was around them or playing with them or new boys, always, to me, it was very exciting.
Was it scary?
No, I didn't think of it as that. It was just, I was very happy to see them and be around them.
At what point did that start to turn into, maybe it didn't, into a feeling that you were not like other people?
Well, I knew, I guess by the time I was 14, that I was not like other people. I was, at that point, becoming a book reader. I had a very vivid imagination. And at that point, I didn't know that I liked to write because I was never encouraged to write. But I had this whole little fantasy world that I could go into at any time, just daydream, just sit and be in class and just go off in my own little world. I didn't have to be a part of everybody around me. In fact, when I was 15, I had a neighbor, the family next door to me. One of the family members there was gay. I knew that he was gay, but he was a drunk and he never stayed there very much. And at one point, I think I went over to help my neighbor, one of the women in the house, because nobody was home. Anyway, and he came home, this guy, and sort of cornered me and said he wanted me to be his boyfriend, a girlfriend, or I want to be with you, I'll never have another woman, blah, blah, blah. I was like a deer in the headlights. I had no vocabulary even to answer him, to begin a discussion. Like, I couldn't even say, what? I just like that, I froze and just turned around and walked off. And of course, the man on the corner said that Sock was gay. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. That he was gay. But I still didn't know really what that meant. I know that there were gay people up on the corner that were accepted as a part of the group. And, but it still was a world apart from me. I didn't connect any of that with the compartmentalized feelings that I had. They were too, because I never really shared them with anybody. These were strictly my own feelings, and I wasn't going out of my way to make sexual contact. I definitely began thinking that sooner or later I'm going to have to declare it. Yes, I knew that was coming down the road, but I decided I will put it off as long as I can. I don't really want to deal with it. It's just living in a small community like that, I couldn't imagine myself coming out and having everybody talk about you for weeks and months and know almost the minute that it happens. I wasn't doing that.
Do you remember the first time you had any kind of actual interaction sexually with another guy?
Yeah, I guess I was over at the playground playing with some guys, and we ended up wrestling, but really was dry humping each other. And I guess I was around 9 or 10. But it was never any penetration or anything like that. It was just strictly whatever you did was with your clothes on.
That felt mostly okay? I mean, it didn't bring up anxiety or fear?
I just thought it was a very private moment for myself, but and I didn't see any reason to discuss it. They didn't discuss it, so I didn't discuss it, and then we just let it. When it happened again, it didn't happen that much, but if it happened again, it was just a private moment to myself. Still, I knew that I was attracted to men. I knew that way back, but I didn't want to focus on it.
And when did it start to become more pressing?
When I was about 17, I was a counselor, and I worked at a camp, and there was one of the campers. He seemed to like me, I liked him, we were the same age. We could have been brothers, but anyway, we just would sort of hang around a lot, and he played the piano well, and nothing ever happened, but I knew that I was very turned on by this guy, and I always wondered whatever happened to him. And one boy up the street, Billy Steele, he was really transfixed by Marilyn Monroe and Veronica Lake, and often in the winter he'd wear his scarf around his like that, so he'd be mysterious. Even signed one of my books when we graduated from 6th grade, "This is Forever, Marilyn." And actually, I bumped into him as an adult, 35 years later, in the subway here in New York. And I recognized him immediately. I went, "Billy?" And he had changed markedly. He was not well. And I suspect he's dead now because he had beautiful skin, but his skin was all pockmarked. And I think he might have been panhandling in the subway. But he was sort of happy to get away from me, and I was happy to let him get away from him because I didn't want to meet him under that kind of circumstances.
Did you hear people talking about gay people? Did you hear people, saying bad things about gay people in church or in family or in school?
Well, in high school, boys, you know how boys will be boys, and I can remember people saying, singing in the locker room, "Everybody likes man pussy," and I just thought that was funny. And some of the older guys would have this song, "Everybody likes man pussy," and I thought it was kind of vulgar at this. I never joined in when they sang that, and there was never anything that I remember about people messing around like that in high school.
You're like the 5th guy I've interviewed now, and thus far nobody has had a really kind of traumatic sense of like shame or fear from their youth in a way that I think people from younger generations would expect in that period of time.
I left one thing out. When I was in the 6th grade, 2 guys in the 12th grade bullied me. And it was definitely, I knew that talk was out about me. And I got on my bike and tried to ride away, and one of them tried to touch me on the butt. And I had to make a decision whether I was going to fight him, but I was a 6th grader and he was a 12th grader, and there were 2 of them, and I knew I couldn't beat them, so I just let it go, and I just rode away. Also, I would have to explain to my family why I was fighting. I always thought if I ever saw those 2 guys, I would bring it up to them because they would have to be in their 70s or 80s now. 80, yeah, they'd be in their 80s. But it's an incident I never forgot. It was more intimidation than anything else.
Were you feeling like you were having to hide something from your family, or particularly with having a religion in the family around these feelings that you were having, or was it just compartmentalized a lot?
No, it was very compartmentalized. I guess I went through a period, maybe when I was 14, my dad said something to me about not overtly being sissy, but he didn't like the way I was dressing, but he never liked the way I dressed. Even when I got to college, you know, he always found fault with the way that I dressed, and that might have been the generational thing, that the pants are too tight and why you're wearing these kind of shirts that are open, and I guess I got to be rebellious at some point, and he told me, go join the Army, and if you don't like it here, go join the Army, or well, they had these nylon, like, short sleeve shirts that people were wearing, and you could get them all different colors, and I had a nylon shirt on, had an undershirt on. Anyway, he said something like, well, why don't you get a pair of titties? And I went, where did that come from? So that's when I knew that he was focused on it, I wasn't. I just like, okay, compartmentalize that, let it go. We're not going to talk about it again, it's not that important. But I know that my brother and probably my father were taking heat from those gossipy men on the corner about me, but nobody ever came up to me and said anything.
Were you aware of gay people like sissies or fairies in your community? Or
Yes.
What was that like to see them for you?
I never knew what they did, except that they were marginally accepted. And I know much later on, my mother, in retaliation to my dad, said, oh yeah, your dad was up there with all them gay boys on the corner. So I said, I'd let it alone. I just thought, okay. I didn't, you know, she knew what gay people were.
Was there anything in you that wanted to hang out with them, that kind of felt like, oh, those are my people, or did they feel, was it too alienating?
Culturally, I wouldn't have wanted to hang out with them because they weren't into, at that point I was going into sports, and none of them were really into sports. They weren't particularly bright, they didn't read. There's very little interest that I would be sharing with any of those people other than going into somebody's basement and pulling down your pants.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, again, there's so many kind of assumptions about what the gay boys are like when they're young, and you think, well, they tend to be more interested in the arts or more interested in reading, or they're more solitary, like you said.
No, they're interested in just doing it. Getting you in the basement, and you know what happens there.
How did you know what happened?
One of them would tell me. I remember one of them, and there was a girl that hung out, and I had this vivid description of someone saying, I won't mention his name, stuck his thing in this girl, and then some white stuff came out of his dick. And so I sort of got the picture of what was going on down there. And so it sort of scared me. I didn't want to, you know, when they told me all of that, I just said, I don't know, that doesn't sound right.
What did you hear? Did you hear specifically about what the boys were doing in the boy stuff?
You could get cornhole. There was anal sex they were doing down there.
So you knew about that already at a young age?
I knew about it, yes. Oh yeah, we were reading 2x4s when I was in the 6th grade.
What are 2x4s?
2x4s are little porno comics. They were almost as big as a checkbook. And you just read them in all sorts of little stories and images of people having all sorts of sex.
Wow, where would you get those? I've never heard of these before.
Oh, I don't know. They were everywhere. That's where I remember, because anytime that anybody got entered, they'd always go, "Kuh." That's and they made strange sounds when they were being penetrated, whether it was a man penetrating another man or man penetrating a woman. They'd make this "kuh" sound. I don't know where it came from.
So you actually had access to gay pornography at a really young age?
Yeah, oh yes.
That's amazing.
In fact, we found, a small group of us on that playground found a handwritten pornography story. And we were fascinated by it because it was quite graphic. And so we each took turns reading it. And then we passed it to the next person. There were girls in the group and guys. And then one girl's mother found it, and we were all hauled in to court, as it were. And finally they determined that none of us could possibly write stuff like that, because we were only like 12 years old. And this was like quite graphic and detailed with anal and all sorts of stuff, oral sex going on. But it was just fascinating for us, to kids to read that.
So was there any other kind of unusual porn back in that day that we might not know about?
Well, there were definitely porno records. And I remember my dad brought one home, and he didn't tell us to listen to it, you know, but he didn't put it away either. So as soon as he went out, you know, the first thing that we did, it was just a man and woman having sex and him telling her to do this, and there was glasses tinkling and her giggling and all sorts of sucking sounds and things like that. And yeah, it was quite graphic. And he had more than one. He also had a pornography collection, which he didn't think I knew about, but I knew. And that's where I saw, he had some frontals of men sitting in chairs with their legs open. And I just was so into women at that point, I just passed over them. And I just thought, well, later I went, wait a minute. What is this guy sitting up there in the chair with his legs spread open, and what is my father doing looking at stuff like this? I don't know whether, I don't know. I just left it alone. I just thought, this is very strange that he would have this alongside of his regular, you know, women and men pornography.
Over the years, have you sort of thought about whether or not your father might have been bisexual or?
I think that he was. I think that he was because he spent time in institutions that did foster homosexuality. He spent 2 years in jail. My father shot a woman and was sent to jail. And he was a hobo. My father rode the rails for almost 8 to 10 years, and he hid that from my mom. And those are both mainly, hobos have a lot of sex with each other. They're very free about it. They're male societies. So I suspect that, and he had a lot of male friends, my dad, that was hanging around. And he'd bring them to the house and they'd be drinking and, you know, the good old boys. So I always suspected when I thought about it that he might have had some homosexual goings on. He definitely went through life with an open fly because I think the girl in the next street looked like my sister. My uncle had a child that lived up the street from me, and we used to joke that this other boy looked like my cousin, not realizing we were hitting the nail right on the head. He was more like my uncle than his son was because he was very bright. But yeah, that's part of living too close to each other.
Were you in a pretty much exclusively black community at this point, or was your?
Well, there were white kids. I went to school with white kids, but yeah, the hill where I lived was all black.
What was the situation around kind of segregation in that period in your community?
Well, the surrounding communities were white, all white, and probably one level above us financially, and they were definitely racist. And I have to applaud that my parents and all the other parents in our area kept us well insulated from whatever prejudice or bias might be around us. And I think they secretly were motivating us to go to school because they knew, you know, if you just went and worked in a factory, you'd never escape the borough, the little place where we lived. You need to go out, get a job, you know, go to college, and like hopscotch out of the community. That's the thing. You did not come back to Darby after you got a degree. It just wasn't done. You moved on.
So it was mostly a middle-class community.
Well, it was a blue-collar.
Yeah.
A blue-collar community.
It's interesting because you just differentiated between middle-class and blue-collar, and it's kind of a distinction that doesn't exist anymore because, I mean, blue-collar was pretty much people who worked in industrial kinds of jobs, which don't exist so much anymore.
Well, this is very true, but Darby was located on the edge of the big oil industrial complex of Philadelphia, and so there were many industries located around there, and a lot of the white Darby people were blue-collar workers also. but not so much when you go to places like Yeadon and Lansdowne and surrounding communities, Ridley Park, where they tended to be more office workers and, you know, moving up the ladder socially. I mean, there were kids, although my father started out as janitors, some of their fathers were janitors too, but they didn't talk about it. Nobody really talked about what their parents did.
Did you like run off with when you were a kid to go to see the bigger cities?
I went to Atlantic City when I was 15, 16 to work for a summer doing dishes. And that's interesting because I used to be followed home at night by men in cars. And I was scared, so I just didn't do any. I just ran most of the way because I didn't get off until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'd be walking home in Atlantic City by myself, and there were all these cars cruising by, and I knew there were men in there looking at me, and that scared me also.
Was there anything about it that tantalized you also? I mean, did they say anything to you?
No, they never said anything. They just looked, they just stared. But I knew that they wanted some kind of sex, and I just was scared of that. Because I really hadn't had sex with anybody. However, that was also during the day was when girls first started to come on to me in the beach. Because I was 16, I had a great body, and it just went completely over my head. Oh, you want to be friends? Oh, okay. I just had no idea that sex was in the back of their head.
You graduated from high school when?
1957.
And what happened after you graduated from high school?
Well, right after I graduated from high school, I was trying to figure out how I was going to get to college. And I had an offer from Penn State to play football, but I played in the All-Star County game that summer, and I got hit so hard I saw stars. I went, hell no, I'm not doing football. Football was out. And then a very nice couple took it upon themselves to write to Ohio State on my behalf. And 2 weeks later, I had a full scholarship to Ohio State. I was also 5th or 6th in my class, so I had very good grades in high school.
Up until this point, has there been any kind of pressure around why didn't you have a girlfriend, or did you have enough cover for that?
Oh no, I had plenty. I was very social, and nobody had any real close, relationships at Ohio State. My freshman year, I dated Vivian, and I dated, but they were sexless relationships, and nobody really questioned you about your relations with girls. They just said, oh, you're dating so-and-so, this one's dating so-and-so, and so that was enough.
I assume it was, to some degree a more innocent time in terms people were not being that sexual probably anyway in college at that point.
Some of them were. I would say half of the people that were dating were having sex, and the other half were not.
Well, that surprises me, actually. I mean, just thinking in terms of birth control and the importance of virginity, in the 50s. We're still talking the late 50s here?
No, this would have been, well, let me see. 59. I graduated in 61, so late 50s or early 60s.
What else was going on in terms of, did you have a sense of politics at that point? I mean, were you...
Oh, that started way back in high school, even before then. I guess my sense of politics came about when I was about 9, and I remember reading about some people called the Dixiecrats, and I noticed that they didn't want to work with black people. And those Dixiecrat states are the basis for the Republican Party today. There still are those 5 or 6 different states that left the Democratic Party and went over to the Republican Party and formed the basis for anybody who wanted to be anti-black could go over to these parties and you don't have to state it anymore because it's already been said. These are the Dixiecrats, and that's my problem with the Republican Party today. It's a lot of closet racists in that party. I'm not saying the Democratic Party doesn't have them, but anyway, I remember that was 1948. Then I specifically remember 1954, which was Brown versus Topeka. Linda Brown was probably around my age, maybe a little younger. But that, again, was the motivation, okay, that we were equal. We didn't have to go to, although I went to integrated high school, there were plenty of places around me that was de facto segregation, because there just weren't any houses for blacks to live in, and definitely was still going on in the South. In 55, Emmett Till was killed. He was killed in Money, Mississippi, for allegedly whistling at a white woman or something. And I knew that he was beaten so horribly. But let me go back to 53 or 54. The NAACP was canvassing the neighborhood for blacks to come in, to join, to get this growing momentum. And there was a palpable sense of fear that you would lose your job if you joined the NAACP because, quote, they know what you do. And my father had just started a new job, which the family needed. My mother, it was a family discussion. Shall we join the NAACP? Will we be fired? Will the family fall on hard times? And it was scary. It was real scary. It's like the Gestapo was going to come around if we joined the NAACP. We ended up, I'm pretty sure we did not join because my father was just too frightened. I must say, go back into high school, we elected our first black president because the blacks, although we had a small class, we were 35 or 40 out of 85. We realized if we did a straight vote, we could vote our own president, and they never had a black president. So by the time the voting and the things had started, the teachers got wind of it. But it was too late to stop it. They were just saying somebody's been doing some political stuff around here, and they didn't like it. But it was too late. So we had a black president, a white vice president, I was the treasurer, and a black secretariat. But that was the first real sense of power that, yeah, you can change things if you know how it works. Even in the Army, I was doing a maneuver, and we were very close to Money, Mississippi. And this was in 1962. I knew this is where Emmett Till had been killed, and we stopped at a restaurant, big restaurant complex, and the captain came out and assigned me the duty of putting up the Jeep top, which I knew would take me 15 minutes, which was all we were allowed because they were afraid of trouble if I went into the stop. And I got somebody to help me. I was determined I was going in there. I was in my uniform, I had with the rest of the guys, and I went in and I sat down, fully expecting to have a club down over my head. And the waitress approached me and said, "What would you like, sir?" I went, I had no idea what to order because I was so sure I wouldn't be served. But she was nice as pie, and I finally I stammered out, "I'll just have coffee." So I had the coffee, and we went about our way.
So you were aware politically at a really young age, and also this is, before the, the visibility of the civil rights movement. I was 9 years old. I remember that. Where did that come from? Did it come from your parents?
I read the paper a lot. I was a reader. My elementary school had a very good children's library, and it was only a block from the school. And I would go to there and just get all sorts. I read the very first Dr. Seuss book called McGonagall's Pool. I remember bringing it home. I was probably in the 2nd or 3rd grade. They had a whole series on biographies of people that, made for kids. So I read about everybody from, George Washington Carver to you name it. I remember particularly, I continued reading Anne Frank's story because she was about the same age. Well, I guess I was in 7th grade. And by that time I had going to be more inwardly focused, and I kept thinking that she was like me, or I was like her, in that you have to contain yourself, you have to write things down. And that also was the beginning of my feelings of wanting to write, that I felt I would like to write, but I was never encouraged to write.
So I'm going to sort of jump subject matter a little bit and try to move. You know, when did you first start to feel enough pressure that you started to seek out some kind of gay sexual experiences?
It came to me. I was in the Army. I was attracted to somebody, and he was attracted to me. We spent a lot of time together. And I think one night, we all were drinking. The whole bunk, the barracks was drinking. And I remember I was just about ready to pass out, and I looked across the aisle, and I saw this guy, and he was looking at me, and I thought to myself, oh my God, he's going to kiss me. And he got up, came over, planted one right on my lips in front of the whole barracks. I passed out, and then I woke up the next day thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get kicked out of the Army but nobody said anything. And the guy didn't say anything. About 5 o'clock that next day, I said, you know what happened? And he says, no. I said, you don't remember anything? He says, no, I don't remember anything. And I knew he was lying. And I said, okay, then if you don't want to confront it, I didn't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking. He didn't want to confront what he did.
So did anything else happen with this guy?
No, I did see him years later, and I guess by that time I was a principal with Martha Graham, and I always kept his address because I thought he was a gorgeous, gorgeous guy, and he was in Seattle. And we got to Seattle, and I got a great write-up in Seattle. And anyway, I called him up, and he came to meet me at my hotel. And he had lost all of his hair, put on quite a bit of weight. I hardly recognized him, where I was looking quite gorgeous. Anyway, he suggested that why don't we go out for coffee? I couldn't get over the fact that he lost his hair. I kept thinking, whatever you say, don't say anything about the hair. Don't say anything about the hair. So he said, let's go out for coffee. I said, okay, let me go. I have to go upstairs because I left my hair up. And oh my God, I didn't say that. I went upstairs and I told my roommate what I said. And I said, I can't go back downstairs. But anyway, I did go back downstairs. And I think he was bona fide crazy by that time. But then I never saw him again after that. So
you're already at this point in our interview in your 20s in the military, and have you not had sex at all yet at that point? Men or women?
No, not till I was 25. I was out of the military. I was a late bloomer.
That's unusual, no?
I don't know.
Was there not social pressure either in the military or in college, in your sports?
No, I was in military intelligence, and we called ourselves the Army of the Damned. Nobody had credentials to be in military intelligence, but we were all highly intelligent, came from different fields, and quite a few of them were gay, although I didn't know it. They would run off to Charlotte for their little things. I knew they were up to no good, but they never invited me, and I never inquired to come because Charlotte was still segregated, and I was would have been the only black in that group. But I had a fairly good idea what they were doing. But no, I didn't have sex with any of them.
So as a late bloomer, when did the blooming happen and how did it happen?
Oh my God. It happened when I came to New York. I had a apartment on Jane Street in the West Village. And there was the Village Bistro was down the corner, and it was, I guess I met this guy. Anyway, he came home, and before you know it, our pants were down. And that was my first introduction to gay sex, you know. And, oh my God, I mean, just, when he asked me to like go down on him, I was going like, well, I know they do this, but I didn't know that I was supposed to do it. And then the way he said it said, lob it. I went, lob it? Then he goes like, I went, oh, it was very rude. It wasn't painful, it was just rude, awakening that, okay, it's not what I thought it was going to be like. You know, I would take care of him, he could take care of me.
Well, let me go backward for a second to how did you wind up in New York? How did that transition come, and why New York, and what got you into Greenwich Village where all the gays were? I
wanted to leave Philadelphia. I did not want to, I knew that I was going to come out, but after the Army, I said, there's no way I can avoid this, but I'm not going to do it around my family. I'm not going to do it in Darby where everybody knows what time you open your left eye in the morning. And so I just decided to New York was, always wanted to come to New York. So when I came here, I already had a degree in physical therapy. I did office temporary for 3 months until I could get my license. And then I started over on Roosevelt Island as a physical therapist.
So what year would this have been? When did you get to New York?
This would have been 1965.
What happened after this first experience of this not so nice
well, I
thing?
continued to go. By that time I started meeting other people in the area. I went to a gay bar, a couple of gay bars, and I started meeting people. And I met a couple of black people. I didn't go home with them because they reminded me of my family. I didn't want to have anything to do with black people. I could do it with white because you weren't like me, but if I did it with a black person, it's like, oh, maybe this is somebody in my family. And my second person, I was mortified again because he wanted to lick my behind. I went, oh. I went, is this what's going to be like? I was totally unprepared, and I was mortified. Anyway, I had a couple of more quote normal experiences, and then I finally met somebody. Well, there were a lot of alcoholics. I met a lot of alcoholics. Many of them are dead. They were writers for the New York Times, and they had martini lunches, and they're all dead. But anyway, one of them was my boyfriend, and he never had money. I was always giving him money because he was spending his money on alcohol. And so after that, I sort of gotten more into what a normal relationship is as far as gays. I mean, you know, there really isn't any second date. There's a first date, and there's another first date, and another first date. There's no, and finally, you know, you meet somebody, and you go out 2 times, or you go out for 3 times, and each time it seemed to get longer. And I had to get the hang of what it means to be in a relationship, in a gay relationship, for myself.
And in terms of going to bars then, I mean, this was still all when everything was still illegal. I mean, what was the experience of being around gay people in that period in New York?
It was quite liberating. I realized that also that there were certain people in the gay bars that were intolerant of me because I was black, but there were others who could care less. So I learned how to put on my armor. They never came right out and said it, but you could tell when people sort of do like that. You sit down, whether they're offended that you're there. Most of the bars were legal in the sense that the police tolerated them, and they were, the mob had their influence on them. There was a great place on Sheridan Square where everybody used to go to dance. Just a wonderful place. Straight people and gay people right after work. You go there from 5:30 or 6 o'clock to 9. And it was strictly a disco party. You drank and you ate and everybody was gone by 9 o'clock. And then the mafia killed the owner. So that was the end of that.
Were you ever arrested? Were there
Yes.
ever any raids?
Yes, I was arrested in 1967, 68. I was at a bar called the Snake Pit. It's an after-hours bar. I had no sooner gotten inside than there was this thumping at the door. The police had a big paddy wagon. We were all taken down somewhere south of here. Made us wait there for a number of hours until Bella Abzug, I don't know if you know her. Bella Abzug was this outrageous lawyer with the big floppy hats and a big mouth. She came and sprang us out. But the big fear at that time was that you would be outed in the newspaper. People had jobs they didn't want to lose, because if you're outed in a newspaper and your company got wind of it, you know, you're pretty much done at that job. They could fire you easily. While we were there, somebody jumped out of the second floor and killed himself because people were just so frightened of being arrested.
Was this at the jail that he did this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was at the jail. But from time to time, the police would come in and just demand all sorts of unreasonable things from the owners of the bars and the bartenders, and you know, just to be nasty. Check everybody's cards to make that you had correct ID. All that went on, I guess, until Stonewall. And I remember I was out that night, and I guess it was around 10 or 11, I heard there was all this commotion on Christopher. And at that time, I was still living on Jane. I hadn't gone home yet, but it was just a short walk. And I walked down, and they had barricaded themselves in and were throwing bricks and bottles at the police. And the police were in a quandary as to, shall we storm the place? But that would have been a PR, you know, disaster for the public relations. So they just let them, it played itself out at 2 or 3 o'clock. The police went home, the guys went home. That was the end of it. I don't think anybody ever really got arrested.
So you're in New York in the mid-'60s, where the whole world is exploding politically. There's so much going on. Do you recall how that impacted, or if it did impact, your feelings about being gay prior to the Stonewall period?
Well, you didn't realize how repressed you had been until after Stonewall. Then you realize, oh shit, you know, they can't do anything to me now. I can do whatever I like. And that was a very liberating feeling. But yes, it was always unspoken. Either the mafia could get you or the police would get you, or gay white people who didn't like black people. Those were three things that sort of operated at the same time.
So in that pre-Stonewall period in New York, did you have any boyfriends?
Yeah, I had one. His name was Bill Steele. He was about 10 years older than me. He was a dancer, or an ex-dancer. And he was the one who first took me to see Martha Graham. I saw Appalachian Spring. I fell asleep. He was a nice guy, just we didn't click that well.
Had you been in love ever? Had you ever felt that feeling of being in love at that point?
In the Army, but I never acted on it. I didn't get love until 1968, when I met my then boyfriend, who I stayed with for 18 years.
We haven't yet learned how you became a dancer.
I became a dancer because I didn't want to go to the gym at night. I thought that was boring. And that summer I saw a dance in Delacorte Theater. And I saw these beautiful black ladies, one of them who I later danced with Martha Graham, Mary Hinkson, Carmen de la Valade, were dancing in the park. And I went, that seems like fun. I think I'll try that. And I looked in the phone book, and of course, Mary Anthony was the first one. I said, okay, she's nearby, I'll go to her. So I went over to her studio, and she liked me, I liked the studio, and I started taking classes there. And 2 years later, she asked me to understudy. So I didn't even know enough to put my tights on the right way. I wore them the way the girls wore theirs. But nobody ever said anything, because usually I was the only guy in class. So they thought I liked to dress that way, but I didn't know any other way to do it.
Tell me a little bit about how you wound up dancing with Martha Graham.
Well, first I went to an audition at Martha Graham's. I was accepted as a general student, and I stayed on scholarship for a year, at which time I started dancing with one of her proteges, Pearl Lang. And I danced quite a bit with Pearl, learned quite a bit of the technique. When an open call came, I went, and I was teaching at the Ailey School. I said to my students, you're going. I'm going to lead you over there. So I took 6 students, and they only took me. We were at the bar. I didn't know Martha was even behind me until I felt a boom on my rump. And there she's behind me, and she used to have this little black fan. And she hit me on the backside, and she said, in her best Mae West voice, you got a nice body, and moved along. And I went, am I in? Does this mean I'm in? But it did mean that that's how I got in. So the company resents people who come in to, they think, the side door. They never paid their dues. You know, you have to do like this to Miss Graham and blah, 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 blah. And here I come in. At that point, I'm almost 30. And I don't have to take a lot of shit from anybody, because I came in and she let me in. But my relationship with Martha was never good.
How long did you dance with her?
10 years.
Wow, that's a long time to...
Yeah, it's a long time to get your face scratched.
So where did that fit in time-wise with your relationship with Stonewall, with everything? When did you start with Martha Graham?
I started with Martha Graham in '71.
Uh-huh.
So that was after Stonewall.
So you were in your relationship already.
And Ross was a principal dancer with Martha Graham. So there's more drama there. I was understudying him. He was part of the people that I was understudying. So I noticed him noticing me, and I noticed him. And we started going out for coffee. There's always somebody with us. We never went out, just he and I. And finally, then he started inviting us to his apartment. So, because he lived in a village, we go to his apartment and have coffee and drinks. And then one day, because I didn't live that far from him, I had a lot to drink. And I said, I have to either go home or I have to take a rest. I just can't. Anyway, I fell asleep in his apartment. And the other guy left, and it was just the two of us. And the rest is history. I got into bed, and we had great sex, and he was like a brother I never had. Because my brother was 5 years older than me, so we ran in different groups. But he was quite wonderful. We had 18 really good years together before he went through midlife crisis with me. He entered it, but he didn't come out with me. He decided he wanted somebody younger. And so I got dumped after 18 years. What can I say?
And this started before Stonewall, this relationship with him?
About the same time, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it ended in 1984.
It was just in the early years of the AIDS epidemic then?
Yes, in fact, I remember being on the beach in 1980, and because Ross and I took a house every year at Fire Island from 1967 to 1984. So it was probably around 1980, we were lying on the beach, a bunch of us, and somebody said, did you hear about this new gay cancer? And you know, people said, nah, I never heard of it. And so we were casually discussing it, but nobody really quite knew what it was. But by the next summer, people were starting to come down with the Kaposi sarcoma, and a few people died, and it just got worse each year.
We'll get back to
Okay.
that. In your relationship with Ross, was it a monogamous relationship? You have an open relationship? And stop me if I'm getting into territory that you're not comfortable with.
It was, for the most part, monogamous. he would go out on the road, and he never said he did anything. I never really asked him about it because I always think if you're in a relationship, put your best foot forward. If you don't have to discuss things and you are good with your better half when you come home, leave it alone. You know, what you did, as long as you don't bring a disease back here, what you did at home and you treat me with respect when you come back home, I'm good. So I wouldn't say it was, if he had said he did something with other people, I probably would have been upset.
So this is kind of amazing. I mean, it starts right around the same time of Stonewall, and then you're monogamous all through the period.
That's what saved me, I think. I think that's why I didn't get AIDS, because Ross and I were pretty monogamous.
Were you guys living together, you and Ross?
Yeah, yes. I mean, basically, I always had this loft, but I stayed most of the time with him on Bleecker Street.
So you're dancing with Martha Graham, and you're in this relationship. Did the Graham thing end sort of just before your relationship ended? It sounds like it was sort of close, or maybe a couple years earlier.
No, the Graham thing ended in 1980, 81. Ross and I physically ended around 84 when he went to Taipei.
So the Graham thing ends, your relationship ends, and the epidemic is beginning. What was the going into that period of the 80s like for you? Were you in?
Scary. I never thought I would live to see 1990. I thought, I just never thought I would, because I didn't, at that point, you don't know who you slept with, although it hadn't been that many people, thank God, from 10 or 15 years ago, because we were told it's slow growing, slow developing. And I think the first person, let me see, Tim, very good friend, Bert, Mario, Bill Carter's boyfriend, about 4 of the guys, they died from the disease. And so it was scary. And then I revised it thinking that, well, I'll never see 1995. Well, I made it that far. I was like, well, I'll never make it to 2000. Because although when I was in Hong Kong, I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. I taught there. When I was in Hong Kong, I got my first HIV test, and it was negative. So I figured, how could that be? But it was what it was. So I've been very careful ever since then as far as my sexual practices and who I go to bed with.
We're doing these interviews for people who are young now and people who are going to be coming along after them. And the whole sexual environment is so different. I mean, even now that we have gay marriage, I know very few people who are getting married who are in monogamous relationships. So many gay men have open relationships. And the other side of the question that I'm asking you is, a lot of the guys that I've interviewed, well, I've interviewed 4 so far, have had extremely promiscuous sex lives and have actually not been in a relationship. Your story is interesting in that you, first of all, as you said, you were a late bloomer. You came out sort of late. And you don't seem to be really driven by your cock in a way that a lot of gay men are. Did you have a sense of yourself as being aligned with the kind of atmosphere in the community sexually?
I don't know that I ever really knew how people, men and women, operated sexually. I'd never, I remember walking down Broadway and I was walking behind these 2 girls. They didn't know I could hear them talking. And one girl said to the other girl, "What are you doing?" And the girl said, "I'm just scoping cock down here on Broadway." Oh, wow. Or I never looked at men's crotches. I just looked at them, and if they were interested in me or I was interested, then, but I didn't just go around looking at people's baskets. I never understood how people could figure out that because at 32, I wasn't married, that I must be gay because I didn't have a wife. But that was more my misunderstanding of that men need sex, and people will say that you have to have it either from a woman or a man. If they don't see any woman around, they say that you're gay. That's where you're getting it. But I never had a sense of the male sex as to how it operates, nor females. I had my own sense. I didn't think I was particularly driven sexually. No, I never understood that.
I think that's great. I mean, because these are not stories that, I mean, so much the mythology in our community is around quantity among men. I mean, there is that kind of male, kind of testosterone-driven, you know, irrationality, if you will, that drives people. And I think it's a lot of younger gay men, even myself, when I was in my early 20s, I thought, am I an underachiever in that regard? You know, that I'm not like having sex with, you know, 300 people in a month. So I think it's nice to hear this window into the story.
Yeah, I felt cheap. I mean, if I went home with somebody, and for the few times that I did, maybe if I, and then I had sex with somebody else that same week, I really was like, oh my God, you just had sex with somebody, and here you are out here again. Because to me, sex was the opening of a door to a personality, and for us to get to know each other. And you can't open one door and then open another door. It's just like my head couldn't really deal with that. I had to deal with one person at a time.
Since Ross, have you been partnered much, or have you been more a single person?
I've been more of a single person. At this point, I don't really know that I want to get to know anybody anymore. It's too much trouble. Men are a pain in the ass. They really are. And I just, you know, maybe occasionally I'll do a hit it and quit it, but that's about it.
I've asked you a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in getting from you. Is there stuff that you'd like to talk about? The stuff that part of your history or part of your feelings that you feel like we haven't gotten to?
I don't know what question sparked it, but I wanted to say that for younger gays who have not come out to your parents, anybody who thinks they can fool another person is a fool. Everybody knows what's going on, and there are agreements not to say anything about it, but your parents know. They always know. And I never spoke to it about my father, but my father said to my brother about me that I don't care what he's done. He's still my son. I wish he could have said that to me. He never did. And I think it could have bridged a big gap for us, but I'm just saying, you got to have those conversations with your parents sooner or later. They know. And you'll be better off. You'll be in I can't tell you how liberating it is, but you know, like my mother, when my mother finally told me, she says, I know, she says, you don't like women. She put it that way. I know you don't like women, but that's okay. It's because I hugged you too tight. And I said, no, Mom, you don't have to go through all of that. You've been a great mom. You don't have to make excuses for me. I said, I am what I am. And she just said, oh, I didn't mean anything like that. But yes, she did. She tried to get out of it because she was uncomfortable talking about me being gay. And both my parents were. So in some cases, sometimes it's best to let sleeping dogs lie. But as parents get closer to that age of death, they come around. They'll let you know that it's okay. I remember telling you about my friend whose mother was in a coma, and he told, while she was in a coma, Mom, I'm gay. She sat up in bed. Call your Aunt Ruth. She's got a gun. and plops back down. Never came out of the coma again. So I kept thinking, well, what is a coma? Anyway, if you can hear something like that, sit up in bed and tell your son, call Aunt Ruth, she's got a gun, and then go back into the coma. You're not in a coma. You're just in some sort of restful sleep. You don't want to be bothered with anybody.
I love that story. How's it felt to be asked all these questions for 2.5 hours?
I don't mind it because I'm talking about myself. Everybody likes to talk about themselves. It's not a difficult thing to do. Of course, if you can accept yourself and you can see yourself, yes. I don't think I would like to go through a period of self-revelation while I'm sitting here, but I've done that before, and I'm quite comfortable now with talking about it.
Did anything come up for you today that you didn't anticipate, or?
Well, I still get emotional about my dad. We weren't close, and I wish I could have known him more because we're very, very much alike. Although he didn't like me and I didn't like him, I am my father's son. And I figured, okay, I'm admitting that I'm his son and I'm gay. Then if he's a part of me, maybe a part of him is gay too. He just couldn't admit it. I hope that he would forgive me as I've forgiven him, and when I'm on the other side, maybe we'll talk.